Warning. This show features dark subjects which may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pandora's Jar. I'm J Wes Secord, the loud, obnoxious one. Hey. And then we have over here our bag of facts, Mr. Bad Ben.
How's it going?
And, as always, our friend, Mr. AT Token. Glad you could,
bother to show up.
Yeah, you're shut up. Get back in your cage. Now, as for the topic of today, I'll put you over to our good friend, Bad Ben.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about the rock apes of Vietnam.
Rock apes.
Rock apes.
The fuck are rock apes?
Well, I guess that's what we're going to find out today.
Apes made of rocks. Okay, good episode. Let's go.
All right, we're all done here. Let's wrap on up.
Wrap it on up.
So, in order to introduce the rock apes, maybe the better way of going about it is to bring up one of their earliest sightings.
Oh, okay.
So, what do you know about the Vietnam War?
It happened in, Was it Vietnam?
I'm going to go with that.
Okay, Vietnam.
Massive clusterfuck.
Final answer.
Do you know who won the Vietnam War?
Nobody.
Was it the Vietnam?
Vietnamese.
So,
I don't understand what you just said.
So the Vietnam War was kind of like, it was never officially declared a war entirely with America. It was more about America supporting the French in order to keep the kind of colony of Vietnam under French control. Whereas
also
the communist
bullshit.
So it was them trying to keep democracy in there. Whereas Ho Chi Minh and many others that are part of this led this resistance called the Viet Cong and other little resistance factions, and they were in support of a communist Vietnam. And essentially, it all came down to eventually the U.S. pulled out because they just couldn't support it anymore, and it became a communist state. But there was a lot of infighting. There's a whole history behind it that'll eventually have to be something we have to put in the jar. But,
and you know what? I knew all that. I just wanted to test you and, give our listeners a historical education of sorts.
So his excuse for exposition.
Yeah. Shut up.
Excuses.
So let's go and let's take a look at a sighting that happened in 1968. Mr. Robert Baird, who was stationed in Vietnam, his unit began hearing some unexplained noises one night on the outer perimeter of their camp.
Is this American Army?
Yes, American Army. Okay. Robert Baird doesn't sound like a Vietnamese name to me.
No, but it could be someone else.
It could just be that one random Swedish guy who just walked in and was like, "Oh, what's going on, guys?"
You know what? I've had it with them. I've had it with American. It's democracy. I'm going to go over here to the communists.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys.
He was just there. He was like
just hanging out.
Yeah. And they're all standing there being like, "We're going to shoot him as soon as he turns his back." He's like, "I like you guys too."
I'm going to eat him.
Yeah.
We're going to eat him.
Well, wait for the rock apes. Sure, that's what they do.
Okay. So, anyways, on the outer perimeter of the camp for his unit, there's these unexplained noises happening. It was pretty late in the night. Pancho, the nickname of their Mexican-American corporal.
I don't even need to say anything.
That's as all the tokens, I'm sure you've heard that name.
Again, it's 1968.
Literally been called Pancho V.
See, yeah, all our tokens.
Again, 1968. I don't think they were really worried about racial tensions too much.
That's friendly at those times.
Yeah. So anyways, the Mexican-American corporal decided to investigate the noises for himself to determine if it was just the jungle, like normal jungle noises, or if it was the enemy sitting in the bushes.
I'm sure they just didn't send out tokens.
So...
He's expendable, you're in
Send the Mexican.
And he was their general, too. That makes
He's not a general, he's a corporal.
Sorry, corporal.
second lowest.
Yeah, and as since Token is a former military member, he would know all about this.
Yeah.
All right. So he marched up to the communication bunker, and there wasn't any incident. He couldn't find any explanation for the noises. However, on the return course, he suddenly let out a few bursts of gunfire while rushing back to the camp, very unsettled.
Oh shit! There's something.
Yeah. The unit's lieutenant radioed in to find out who was firing and at what. Once Pancho returned, he told the unit that he had noticed a bush that had not been there before. So
somebody needs sleep.
He decided to go and investigate, and when he leaned in to investigate, the bush snorted at him.
How many drugs did we put this guy on?
Believe me, that's a whole theory in its own. So, a quote from Baird's writing, a quote from Baird himself is, what he had encountered was the ubiquitous rock ape of Vietnam. I would come to learn that they were nearly everywhere and quite fearless. That is what we had heard near the wire that night. End quote.
End quote.
Now, the rock ape, that wasn't the only sighting that they ever had of a creature like this. They were fairly common to be sighted around. Another sighting happened in 1969 when a patrol was ambushed by enemy fire, and everyone took cover. While they were avoiding the gunfire, a large humanoid creature broke out of the forest. It was roughly 7 feet tall, impressively built, and covered in reddish hair.
Okay, someone's got to call Bigfoot on this.
You know what? Before we go on to that, I just have to laugh at the idea of the impressively built. That's what you know. Oh my god, that thing must be working out up there.
There's not a lot of women.
Yeah.
Take what you can get.
Yeah, you get ambidextrous after a while.
So the creature moved very quickly and did take some damage from the crossfire. However, it only stumbled. It didn't go down.
It took a shot and just ugh. And then kept
going. It took some fire, which means it was more than a shot.
The patrol then heard shouting that they couldn't understand coming from the enemy, who were making a hasty retreat, some even leaving their weapons behind.
Everybody bail shit.
I imagine in cartoons when there's a smoke silhouette of them after they run away, the gun's just floating in the air, and then when you look back, they drop.
Once the smoke's gone.
Yeah.
So the Americans managed to regroup at a safer location, but they were in for a night of animalistic noises, so grunts, screams, barks, howls, and whines from all around them.
Plus, the rock apes were making a lot of weird noises.
Yeah.
No women.
You know how much I wanted to make a joke like that?
That's fine.
I've been waiting on it.
He's the token. He can do it. In the morning, they were given permission to go back and investigate the spot of the ambush, and they made a really gruesome discovery there. There was an enemy soldier found, and he was viciously torn apart.
Jesus.
Basically as if something just
shredded him
to pieces.
Claw-wise or
pulling him apart?
That can happen, unfortunately. I mean, just with people.
So he was probably looking for another soldier to see if they're interchangeable limbs.
So, quote, the rest of the time we were in Vietnam, I never heard those sounds or saw anything like it again. The talk of what we had seen spread very quickly, and some of the locals called it a name that I can neither pronounce nor remember. But the translation, if I recall, was stench monkey or foul monkey. Something like that. I can't remember for sure. What I do know is that it bothered me so much that I transferred from there to a job on a helicopter so that I wouldn't have to be in the jungle anymore.
There's a million reasons to get the fuck out of war.
Yeah.
That's just one of them.
And it takes, a somewhat rarely seen ape that throws shit back at him.
Oh, believe me, there's a little more to this. Michael Kelly describes an encounter with hundreds of the creatures.
What?
Yeah. While his platoon was having lunch near a ridge near Numotao, I'm going to completely butcher these all the way through, by the way. They were surprised when 8 of the apes came around the ridge only 10 meters from the men who were setting up having lunch. So, at first, the platoon thought it was the Viet Cong, and all hell broke loose. And that's a direct quote. All hell broke loose. As the men began firing and launching grenades.
What? Open with grenades? I guess if there's hundreds of the fuckers, why not?
When it's an opener. You got to make it spectacular before you get to the main event.
If you saw 300 things that are giant come over there, fucking burn it.
Well, again, they think it's the Viet Cong, right? So they think it's the enemy.
If you saw 300 giant 7-foot furry shit...
It's not 300. They only saw 8 of them. So
oh, okay.
Well, yeah, they aren't the Spartans.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's in Thermopylae.
Yeah.
So Kelly took cover with the sergeant behind a toppled tree. The two took cover while they gauged the best moment to join in the fight. When they popped out from their cover, they were met with a ghostly image. Again, direct quote. The men were firing on creatures roughly 5 feet tall, and all but one were covered in lightly brown to reddish hair. The sole exception was a large, assumed male covered in black hair. He was extremely aggressive and was rushing madly at the men in the underbrush while snarling with giant teeth.
The alpha.
The creatures emitted sounds that were similar to barking. As suddenly as they rushed in, they melted away into the jungle, and the platoon regrouped and began discussing what they had witnessed. They searched the scene, but found no dead bodies, no blood, not even any fur. It was as if the creatures...
The grenades just missed?
I mean, it's a bushy environment. Grenade flak would just get caught in...
Oh, I see.
It's just not that effective.
But it's almost like they just vanished. Like, they just melted, like it said,
it's
melted
their home
back
territory.
Yeah.
Like, any natives can do that in any of their own territory.
Yeah, well, you have to say this, though, is the Bigfoot thing you were saying earlier. Like, this thing isn't shy at all. Like, it's just
we'll get into that whole thing, and we'll do the comparison between this and Bigfoot as well.
Oh, we have a comparison, too.
Yeah.
Oh, this is exciting.
People.
A quote from this incident is, "This may sound very strange to you, but although I had no or little concern about killing the enemy, the killing of innocent animals turned my stomach and could enrage me if it was done without necessity. But I searched the site, and found but not a drop of blood, which totally amazed me given the amount of firing that had gone on and grenades."
Having seen Americans go at it, nah, I buy that.
I wonder to this day if the men were shooting just to scare the rock apes away, or whether they were just poor marksmen.
If they were stormtroopers. Star Wars ones.
I used to work with this girl who said she hated Star Wars just for that pew pew sound. But the men who suffered the surprise looked a little bit worse for the wear, and I'm sure a few of them had to wash their shorts out as well from the unwelcome visit. It really scared the crap out of them. I kid you not.
I mean, that's not unusual given the circumstances. People shit themselves.
And again, mass groupings were not an isolated incident. In 1966, Hill 868, which eventually became called Monkey Mountain because of the fact that the rock apes were spotted so much in this area, was the setting of a showdown between the Marines and a large group of the apes. The Marines...
There's got to be a report on this, like an official military report.
Oh, believe me, you're about to really get it. The Marines had radioed their captain initially, believing that the movement around them was from a large group of Viet Cong. They were ordered to stay in place and not open fire in order to hide their position, which, and just basically scout what was happening and report back on the behavior. Soon after, the patrol radioed that it wasn't the Viet Cong, but a large group of bipedal humanoids covered in hair. The Marines were
bipedal too?
Yeah. The Marines were then told to just throw rocks at the creatures in order to scare them off because they were believed to be gibbon monkeys.
But I like that command, believe them.
Yeah, but this was a very poor decision. Well, you gotta think, gibbon monkeys are everywhere there.
I guess that's true, but like a whole squad of them?
Yeah. But this is a very poor decision as the Apes began hurling rocks back at a very great force.
Nice.
The fuck you!
From the amount of screaming and growling around the Marines in the jungle, there must have been an estimated 100 of them.
I mean, I'm going to call bullshit on that. Because when you panic, you always sound like there's more.
It's about to get a little worse. The Marines were never given permission to fire despite numerous requests. They were ordered to use their bayonets instead. The radio then was filled with pain screams from both the men and the apes alike.
Just the worst fisticuffs.
Quote, "We're going hand to hand," end quote, came over the radio just before the hill exploded into gunfire, screams, and screeching.
That sounds about right. Because they were not really trained for that, as I recall.
Yeah.
Fucking shoot it all.
The captain then sent men to investigate Hill 868. They found injured men, but no dead Marines. However, there was allegedly dead bodies of the rock apes. But
they pull any in?
I'm not certain. From what I've read, they never say that they got any specimens or held on to any specimens. This battle was given the infamous title of, and again, I'm going to completely pronounce this wrong, but Battle of Dong Den.
That sounds pretty close. Yeah. I think.
So
Dong Den.
Basically,
I got nothing. Not a token I have, sadly.
No, you do, because you're all the tokens.
So in 1968, members of Mike Company of the 3rd Battalion of the 5th Marines operating on Hill 868, so Monkey Mountain, apparently came across a lot of evidence of these creatures. There was like droppings, tufts of hair, footprints, as well as they were hearing eerie cries and barks throughout the night. And eventually the rock apes were throwing rocks at them.
Eventually.
They just get pelleted by rocks.
I think something's here. I found this fur. I found this poop. I found these footprints. And... Who threw that?
I'll run a campaign against these things.
The apes were described as throwing like girls, but with velocity.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
I honestly, I guess like with that limp wrist type of thing.
But with velocity.
But with velocity, so their limp wrist can make it go boom a lot faster.
High-speed artillery.
Apparently, these did cause a lot of injuries. There was reports of men being injured from this. Steve Canyon, who is a veteran, he was with a unit of Marines in the jungle of Hill 68, and they were testing out new muzzle flashes and a noise suppressor just to kind of
that is true.
See if it would be better on that area. Yeah. As they were setting up, they suddenly noticed in the vegetation there was a rock ape glaring at them. And he was not afraid of them.
He even put his hands up, pointed at his eyes, and then pointed at them.
So the creature was then barking like a dog, and one of the men threw a rock to scare it and hit it dead on. The ape then picked up a rock of his own.
More fight!
And it came flying back.
Was it the same rock? Because that would be hilarious.
Well, it was then noticed that there wasn't just one rock ape. There was about 20 of them, and they were all beginning to screech. And suddenly, there was a rain of rocks.
There's one thing we don't like, is people throwing rocks!
So, despite the threatening situation, nobody opened fire. They all made a hasty retreat, which I would say so. If a bunch of freaking giant monkeys are throwing things at me, I'm going to get the fuck out of there.
I thought they were only 5 foot tall. 5 feet
They're
tall.
between 5 and 7 feet.
5 and 7. Oh,
Remember that one 7-foot one took bullets and then fell because of his impressive build?
Yeah. He stumbled.
Yeah,
he
that's
didn't
true.
fall.
He never fell.
It's worth pointing out, Vietnam was like the first full deployment of the M16, which was a downgrade in caliber to the 5.56.
Yeah, a lot of these incidents actually mention a
shit.
lot of M16.
Like, they're famous for just going right through people. Some people don't notice they get hit by them until later. So they eventually developed tumbling bullets, but I'm not sure they had them then. I don't know enough.
When Canyon was asked why he didn't shoot the creatures, he said, quote, "I don't know, didn't seem right, but those apes started to come at us and we ran as fast as we could and we didn't stop until we were out of the jungle." End quote. There's also a really nice one that account that came out in April 18th of 2010 from a man named Graham Webster. He sent it to the New York Times. And so I'm just going to read the story as it's written. One evening sometime in 1967, the Marines from the 4th Marine Regiment were assaulted by a large number of rock apes, which were said to inhabit the caves of the area. The Marines fought back in a prolonged burst of firepower which lit up the night. In the morning, there were allegedly corpses of ape-like creatures strewn about, and they were included in the SITREP briefing body
Situation
count
report.
Yeah, okay. This incident sounds very much like a battle. Sounds very much like the battle between the Marines and the rock apes that happened on Hill 68 in the Battle of Dong Den. It was also claimed that the bodies the bodies of the dead beasts were left in the wake. So,
Well, they weren't going to bury them. There's probably too many. Also, they seem terrified of them.
Yeah, honestly, they probably got out of the place, and then the other rock apes probably took the bodies and whatnot.
there was even in 1971 reports of some tribesmen that had caught 2 of these creatures, but alive, but there's never any complete evidence of this. So what are these things? And this is where we're going to start breaking it down a little bit more, and then I'll talk about some of the evidence we have that they do exist, other than these reports. So in Vietnam, the rock apes are known as Batututs. And again, I'm completely butchering this. They're also known as the Huit and Nom Zao, or jungle people.
How far do records go back of them?
The first recorded sighting from anybody in the military was actually in 1918.
I meant from the Vietnam. 1918.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were both frequently sighted by both sides, so even the Viet Cong had it. In fact, the Viet Cong were so entranced with this that they actually sent out several expeditions to find these things, and they always came back empty-handed. General Hao Ming Ta unsuccessfully led an expedition to capture or kill a rock ape in 1974. There was a similar expedition organized by Professor Vo Quy of the Vietnam National University. In 1970, Professor Trang Hong Viet of Hanoi's Pedagogic University made casts of a strange human-like footprint that he found deep in the jungle. The footprints were not human, but human-like. So apparently they live very deep in the desert, deep in the desert. They live
deep in the desert. The desert is so hard to see things.
I know, it's not. It's almost like it's not an open space.
Yeah.
Well, there's sandstorms and hills, and it actually is kind of a pain in the ass.
He said, "Shut up."
All right, Afghan boy.
All right.
But yeah. So
jungle, presumably.
Yeah, they're found deep in the jungle, and they're found mostly away from civilization. They're not really along the coast. They're not close to any major cities or major towns.
They do seem to hate us, so that makes sense.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why they're not fearful of us, because the only humans they're encountering are these locals who seem to know them from generations. Like, there's stories upon stories from generations past of encounters with these people from the people who live deep in the jungle. So when they started coming in and just attacking each other in the middle of the jungle, that probably did set them off a little bit because you're in their territory. They also don't seem like... They also have a couple distinguishing things from from Bigfoot. They're normally described as about 5 to 7 feet, but normally, traditionally, it's about 5 to 6 feet. Bigfoot are normally described as between 6 to 8 feet tall. Mm-hmm. So we're losing about 2 feet between these two. The reddish hair. Bigfoot is normally described with black to reddish or brown to reddish hair, whereas these are mostly described with just reddish hair. And
I never knew Bigfoot had been described with black.
Yeah, it all depends on the area he's in. The further north that you go, the more the reported say black hair, whereas the further south you go, it's light brown.
That would actually kind of make sense, because...
Wouldn't it be the inverse?
No, because if
heat retention.
Further north, more snow, brighter area, you'd probably be more of a silhouette.
But you see it better. Also, black is really unusual for camouflage because anybody can see black.
Yeah, not as camouflage. It's probably brown fur that it looks darker because it's so bright.
Fair enough.
That's what I meant.
And I don't think it'd be much of a camouflage thing. I think it's more like almost like, how brown bears are found further north because they have darker fur, so it retains all that heat inside of the fur. It absorbs the sunlight.
Yeah.
Although you look at polar bears who their fur is completely designed to just hold on to heat. And they're bright white.
Yeah.
But anyways, they're normally described as 6 feet tall, strong build, long limbs, protruding bellies covered in brown or reddish brown hair. That's what the rock apes are described as. They also normally travel in groupings, whereas Bigfoot is normally a solitary animal. They don't often have sightings of Bigfoot with more than one.
I've never even heard of more than one.
I've heard of a few where they're like kids, but nothing...
Oh, like a family unit.
Yeah, nothing
tribal.
That's interesting. Obviously, because of that, the rock apes are probably more sightings, but you think just the right person with a camera would be able to catch one on camera, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Another description that comes in very often is that there are hairy Sasquatch-like humanoids, said to be around 6 feet tall, stout, very muscular, protruding bellies, which again, that's a very common thing, protruding bellies, covered in hair ranging from reddish brown to just red, except for the knees, the soles of the feet, the hands, and the face, which remain bare. So I guess for the foraging and such. There are some similarities though between the two. Bigfoot are essentially for scavengers, not scavengers but foragers.
Okay.
So they forage from the ground, whereas the rock apes also do that as well. They're assumed to just be foraging from the ground instead of being up in the trees. And they also are very active at night or around dusk. Both are very similar in that capacity. Bigfoot sightings mostly happen around dusk or very late at night because it's easy to hide. And again, this explains partially why they're not as well known to people or not being seen and having very easy time hiding because they're deep in the jungle and they're only active in times that people would normally be sleeping and that it's very dangerous for people to be out wandering the jungle. So there's some other some misidentification theories of them. Some people believe that what people are seeing are gibbon monkeys.
Yeah, that was mentioned earlier.
I have a very hard time believing that. So the 5 foot, even at a 5 foot body frame, it doesn't line up with gibbon monkeys who weigh roughly about 20 pounds. They're very small creatures, and they're not described as very, like, the rock apes are described as very large beings, like not small little monkeys.
I'm just looking it up on the Googles, and yeah, these things, gibbons, are actually they're kind of the stereotype of that monkey we all sort of see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Also, notably, like, balled up.
Yeah, they're tiny. They're tiny as hell.
Well, it sounds like the other ones, like the rock apes, move primarily biped, whereas those would also balance on their hands and feet.
Yeah.
Yep. Another thought is that these are misidentified orangutans. That doesn't, like, and while that could make sense, because orangutans, even though they normally appear very small, they can be very large.
Oh, yeah.
But it does make sense because orangutans actually went extinct in the region thousands of years ago. Also, the behavior and descriptions don't really match up entirely with orangutans. And while they can be social, they do prefer to forage alone.
You know, what if they are the orangutans that disappeared, but they sort of evolved over time and became...
remnants.
There's a whole other one about it being an extinct species as well, and we're going to get into that. A plausible explanation is the Tonkin snub-nosed monkey. It is Vietnam's largest native primate and extremely endangered, and Wes is looking that up right now.
I want to see this.
It was actually thought to be extinct until it was rediscovered in 1989. However, there are thought to be only roughly about 250 left.
Oh, jeez.
Like, in existence. Not even just in the wild. The argument...
They kind of look like bat monkeys.
Yeah. The argument for their status as the possible culprit is because they don't show much fear for humans. They do make a wide range of sounds and noises, including that similar to a dog bark, which is a trademark of rock apes. However, they are nowhere near as tall as the 5 to 6 feet that rock apes are described to stand at. They also have prominent tails that would be very noticeable, and rock apes are never described with tails.
To be fair, both of those things could evolve out.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming a remnant theory, but...
The monkeys are also arboreal, whereas rock apes forage on the ground.
Yeah.
They're also not often bipedal, and they don't really have reddish fur.
Though you say that, but I just found this picture that kind of describes the rock ape.
I could see that.
With the snub-nosed monkey. Yeah.
Yeah, if you made it massive.
Yeah, obviously that's the main problem is it still has a tail and it's really tiny, but like it's got the orange fur and kind of odd looking and stuff like that. But it still does look pretty tiny.
There's also another explanation, and take it for what it's worth, because some skeptics put forward the explanation that these are just hallucinations from all the drugs that both sides were taking.
I mean... But the drugs they were taking would have made them more aggressive and less emotional to fight the war, but they've notably not been aggressive.
Plus, their drugs would not have rocks thrown at them.
Yeah. That's where some of it falls flat, but then again, what if they're throwing rocks at each other?
You think they're mixing Viet Cong for rock apes?
I think it's
like
each other.
Because
both sides were using drugs, so not just marijuana, but they were like dropping acid and things like that. And of course, acid causes hallucinations. Boy, do I have a whole tale for that one. But
holy shit, that's a thing?
Yeah,
I just thought it dissolved stuff.
Totally. Like I said, first sightings were in 1918, but it wasn't until the Vietnam War that sightings became very frequent and very popular. So there is a doctor that went on another expedition, and he did find footprints as well. His name is Dr. John McKinnon. and he's one of the most notable researchers on rock apes. He found footprints in 1970 and believed them to be hominid in nature.
So our genetic line.
Yeah, the footprints had human-like toes, but were about the size of an Asiatic bear, which are also not native to Vietnam.
Jeez. So they weigh well, you did mention they were dense and massive, so I guess that makes sense.
They took a couple of bullets and only stumbled once.
He was also informed by the locals that the apes were known as Batutut, or however it's pronounced. That's the most pronunciation I could find for it.
Fair enough.
Batutut. So Batutut.
Batutut.
So he attributed it to Meganthropus, which is an extinct non-hominid ape.
Hominid ape? What?
Non-hominin.
Oh, hominin. Okay.
Hominid ape. So not entirely human, but definitely
Similar
on that.
genetics.
Like there's a lot of similarities. It was native to Indonesia in the Pleistocene era.
It's also in that area as well.
Yeah. Around that area of time. But yeah.
Oh, my dimensions hurt.
What, like your first or second?
Fourth.
See, that's why you gotta stay in the third.
Yeah.
If you venture into the fourth, it's all over.
Enjoy your static existence.
I'm okay without being enlightened. Yeah, so he actually thinks, so basically his theory is that it may actually be like an ancestor of ours. They did find in the Indonesia area a lot of skull fragments, jaw bones, things like that for this specific ancestor.
Any graves?
Pardon?
Any graves or any sign of burial rituals?
No, and they can't find it very much for, like, there's not a lot of evidence of the rock apes either, so it's not really like a thing.
Fair enough.
He never did find any definitive proof that rock apes existed. However, he was credited with discoveries of other large mammal species in the area in 1992, including one that they completely thought was a myth.
Huh.
Which demonstrates that there could be many species that we have no idea about living deep in the jungle. Which
That's
is
still
hiding.
true.
What was that species that you found?
It's a type of, like, it's weird. I never managed to really find...
This whole thing is weird. But
Yeah. Also, anything new and unknown tends to be weird, right?
I never did really find the name of it.
I mean, I'm buried in a textbook somewhere, so that's not terribly surprising.
Yeah.
He is our bag of facts, though.
Yeah, but he's also not an infinite bag of facts.
Yeah, I fell short on that research for that one. But
Damn it!
I know. Okay, here we go.
Yep, he's got it.
He found the Sawala, or Vukang ox, which is kind of like it's a mammal. It looks a little bit like a deer. It's got some markings for camouflage and such. Small antlers, but it was thought to be a complete myth. Like, nobody had ever seen one other than the locals. And then he did find this in 1992.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so again, it could be just hiding anywhere out there.
Yeah, and honestly, finding any myth-like creature will cause all the cryptids to jump in and be like, they all exist!
Well, that's actually how some cryptids are found. Like, that's the beautiful thing about cryptology, is that they could be real. Sometimes when they think, for instance, the colossal squid was thought to be non-existent, and then suddenly, bang, they found a body of it.
Yeah.
And then they thought for a long time that they would never see one alive, and then they managed to capture one, I think, actually very recently. Like, not capture it, but capture footage of a live one.
I thought they picked up, like, a baby one in, like, 08.
Something like that.
It wasn't full size, but it was still creepy looking.
Yeah, most of the bodies are usually, they're huge, but they're not, like, full-sized.
Yeah, so that's the rock apes. Like I said, there's all these theories behind it. Some people think they're drugs, like just drug hallucinations. Now, I have a hard time with that one just because we're all tripping out to the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
You see the rocks too?
isolation is a thing, and war is a very polarizing and group experience.
Yeah.
But you're right, doesn't add up.
I like the idea of it being either an unknown species that we've never encountered before, or an ancient ancestor that's still alive.
Well, let's be fair. I think everyone prefers that option just because it's more interesting. whether true or not, that is the direction I would like to go as well.
Well, that's just it, and that's what was really cool about Dr. McKinnon's discovery of the Swala, like the fact that he found this in that jungle.
The mighty jungle.
Yeah.
Really?
Where the lion sleeps.
I don't think there's any lions in Vietnam.
The rock ape.
There's definitely not in Yeah. I tried looking for stories of them ever throwing the grenades back, and everywhere I looked had said that there are accounts, but never gave me the accounts, which I thought would have been fantastic.
Because that's probably one of the funniest part of the stories, though. I feel like we alluded to it. We never properly explained it, but there are times when where people threw the grenades thinking they were throwing it at the enemy, and then the rock apes
just went back,
picked it up and went, "No, you take it.
Your rock."
You have the odd rock back.
So was there any actual physical evidence kept or any record?
Like I said, the only evidence that they ever kept on both sides were these footprints. There was never any really any tufts of hair. However, there was an ape, and I don't have the name of it, but it was described as a different type of, it was described as an ape that was found in the similar region. And there are these theories that connect it to being a rock ape, but it doesn't exactly fit the description. And that ape does appear to have been a fraud. So
okay.
It doesn't really.
So the ape was trying to pose as the rock ape in order to gain fame. And recognition.
Copycat hoax, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, hey, that's what they sound like, right? I'm rock ape.
Why don't they bark like that? Ruff, ruff, ruff.
I'm sorry. Bark. Yip. No, that's a chihuahua. Oh, shit.
They make the noise bark.
So
that's how desperate they want the recognition.
Okay.
Dog bark, dog bark, dog bark.
Howl, bark, howl, grunt.
I just imagine him with this English accent and being like, "I'm too sophisticated for this."
Yes. Sorry, a bow wow. Yes. I snort, growl, bow wow.
I'm just that after he's done, he's smoking a cigarette and being like, "How is that?"
Yeah, this cigarette, he has his pinky up and he puts on his monocle and top hat. It's like, "Oh, was that good? Oh, we shall become quite famous indeed."
Oh man, have you seen the Umbrella Academy?
Of course.
The monkey from that. I think that'd be amazing.
I mean, if we have photos on this, we need to get a mashed up photo of a rock ape with a top hat and monocle.
Yeah.
This is just now.
You know what? If we get any fans out there who are actually good at, who are great artists and stuff, please send us fan art of a rock ape with a monocle and top hat smoking a cigarette with his pinky up.
Cigars accepted.
Cigars accepted as well. Or even those weird, long filters that they had way back.
The cigarette holders?
Yeah.
That would be slightly more elegant.
Yeah, exactly. The point is, we want this fan art, and if we get some good fans who are good at the art, send it to us. We have a Twitter and a Instagram, whatever you kids talk about to these. I just became 30. I'm old now. So anyway,
what I love about that is that he's the youngest one out of them.
I'm sorry. 2 days ago was my birthday, so I get to act old. Thank you very much.
You whippersnapper, you.
You swip. Oh, in my day, we didn't have peoples like you.
So,
This just sounds so racist.
And that comes from Token.
Right?
Yeah. So, just to really clarify here, I didn't choose Rock Apes because of the, Planet of the Apes escape yesterday with the COVID-19.
Oh, yeah. They were planning it. They grabbed it and they were like, let's throw it, guys. Let's throw it. That's our thing.
So, small side note while we go down this path, because we're going to open this up, but can you imagine being the person to make this call that you were attacked by monkeys and they stole the COVID-19? You had one job, and it was to basically watch the monkeys and test out this virus, and suddenly the monkeys have the virus.
You gave the virus to someone who's incompetent and possibly will use it to kill us.
Just imagine that phone call, though. So, I know how this is going to sound.
Yeah.
To be fair, there's a lot of insane military calls.
So I was playing around with the tube of COVID, just like you guys asked me, and these monkeys showed up, and I was watching them. It was kind of cool and everything, and next thing I know, like one was doing a fancy dance, and while I was paying attention to him, another one showed up on my shoulder, grabbed the COVID virus, and ran off. So, so what I'm trying to say is I lost the virus. More I think about it, it just sounds like a dog ate my homework story. And the monkey didn't actually take it. The guy just lost it, and he's like, monkeys.
Yeah, the monkeys got it. I feel like or the other way, he lost the monkeys and was like, they stole the COVID sample.
Doubling down on your excuses.
Oh, jeez.
Could you imagine that you hear this phone call and then you're sitting there and you're being like, monkeys, yeah. And then you check the footage and like, I'll be damned, fucking monkeys did get out.
Well, holy shit. Like, what do we, I guess we have to say sorry to Jeff. He told us that we thought he was making excuses, but the footage is here. All
right, well, how about we apologize to Jeff? Well, you kind of sent him to the cryo chamber.
You know what? He doesn't need to know. What doesn't know doesn't hurt him.
That's the year 3000 problem.
Yeah. And then he comes out next to Philip J. Fry.
Also, could you imagine being fired for this and then having to go and try and get a job?
Yeah.
So why'd you get fired from your job as a researcher? Well, you see, I kind of let the monkeys get away with the COVID-19 thing. Oh, okay, well, then I don't really think you're going to fit here. Well, this is just the flip burgers and stuff. Listen, McDonald's has a lot of priority, and they have
we take our health seriously.
We take it seriously.
You couldn't even watch monkeys.
You played with monkeys and viruses. We can't have that health violation here.
If you lose something as valuable as monkeys and COVID-19, we just can't assume that you'd be able to have any responsibilities.
I kind of like the idea that they don't even care about the COVID-19. It's like, you lost monkeys? Oh my god, they also had COVID-19. I don't give a shit. The COVID-19 couldn't walk away. You could have found that. But the monkeys?
But what I love is that all the articles that describe a Planet of the Apes type escape.
I mean, that's just dramatization.
It's like I was saying yesterday, 2020 is just all the disaster movies wrapped into one.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Caesar is the one who grabbed COVID-19, and it's why we're gonna die.
Guys are for the win.
Well, we all know that July is all about Sharknadoes. So
yeah. My God, let's talk about other mythological creatures only prosed from movies.
It's funny because I do have some other things that we're going to put into the jar. I actually think that's what we should call this.
I actually really like that. You shouldn't have explained it because now it feels dumb.
Sorry,
but
Might just be you.
Please cut that.
It's cool. Yeah, actually, I really like that. And I'll explain why later when we're off mic, so people don't get annoyed by us talking about basically masturbating to our own cleverness.
Isn't that what this podcast is?
Listen, shut
up.
Just because Wes is stroking himself.
Guys, you said you weren't going to tell.
Bring lube next time. We won't hear it.
It was my birthday. I got away with this.
Okay, but it was really awkward when you kissed us on the cheeks. I'm just saying.
I don't like the mics being this close.
That's not the mic. So this one got right off the rails.
Yeah. So anyways, back to the business end of this. We are on Apple. Still trying to get Google entirely figured out, but we are on Stitcher, we are on CastBox, we're on SoundCloud, and we're slowly evolving outwards. Rate, review, it really helps us out on this end. There are socials that you can reach us on. There is Pandora Jar on Facebook. On Instagram, we are Jar Pandoras.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it came up. On Twitter, one moment here. Dance. All right. So again, on Twitter, we are at jar_Pandora on Twitter. And we also have a Patreon page. We will link that in the show notes. We did set up some tiers, and so as the tiers go through, we do have a regular tier, and then because of the way we were discussing things, if you do go at the $5 level, you get early access to our bonus material. But don't worry, if you can't pay that, then within about a month, we will release the bonus material as well.
Are we taking requests?
We are. Any submissions that anybody gives me.
Yeah, definitely send us requests and fan art. We want this fan art of the elegant rock ape specifically. Don't get them confused. They might make a gibbon, like the army did.
Well, again, you can DM that to me on Instagram or Twitter. We also have an email, Pandora's Jar 4535 at gmail.com. So.
Yeah, you're reading this.
I'm not. I'm trying to remember it offhand.
Right. Off head.
Yeah, off head. Because it's written on your head.
Right.
What a birthday you had.
Yeah. All her material. All right. Have a good night, folks.